Alright, so getting back to this, these are painted a really nice anthracite gray. The fronts should be just flat black, and I will do that coming up soon. I do love this color. This is really, really beautiful. But turning back to these few pieces here, what I realized putting them into place is that these ledges block some really critical stuff. So I've already cut this one out as best I could, an X-Acto blade. So now I should be able to fit the fiber optics through there, and what I'm realizing is that I'll need some kind of, I'll probably need some kind of light blocker around each of these central circles. This is the only bit of tube that I have that is the appropriate size, so I'm going to cut this into a few different pieces and stick that in there. Originally I figured I could just get away with gluing these little light blockers in here, but putting the single LED in here to light up that central little circle there is going to cause a lot of light leak everywhere. So the tube is going to be glued to the back side of that. Obviously I'm not going to use this notch somewhere in there, which means I may have to take these out, which is no big deal. But as I was saying about these ledges here, once you put these in place, so the first obvious bad thing about this is that this ledge here cuts across this circle. So if you put a light back there, you're just going to see that. There's a couple other fiber optic holes down here that are blocked, as well as the entire top range there. So we got some cutting to do. And the first thing I'm doing is notching in like this, so that way when I slice sideways, it's going to act as a stop and hopefully keep blade from traveling too far at any given time. Doing this slow is definitely going to be important. I'm not worried about cutting off the entire top ledge because there are sides, but I may have to re-green this. Yeah, I'll probably have to spray that entire area again. Let's take a look. Oh, then again, that works pretty well. And that was just enough to unblock those areas there. One of the things that PGMS suggests in their directions, as I think I mentioned in a previous installment, was to simply flip this plastic over and you could use this to put the decal on. What that would mean though is that you have to re-drill all these small holes here out of this plastic. So what I'm going to do is get a little small piece of plastic, put it exactly behind there. There will be a little drilling to do because some of these holes are pretty close, but it's not going to be the entire face again. And out of the middle here, you only need to cut this little bit. So I want to do as little as possible to this. Always test fitting along the way. And when you are slicing here, one thing you're going to have to keep in mind is that this under ledge can be sliced through entirely, which means light could leak out of those areas. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that and look at both sides. And just a little more on this side for good measure. Okay, so these two pieces here are mirror images, so we'll have to cut heavier on this side, I imagine. Not quite mirror images, but close. This one has these holes here at the corner, but those has a couple dots. So let's cut all the way over to the edge here, which will work because there are side slabs, ledges that will still hold the brass in place. There we go, pretty sweet fit. One thing I'll note about these clear plastic pieces is that these do have a bit of an L shape here, a lip on one side rather than the other. But that is the top, which would make me think that this is supposed to lean a little steeper than it does. And I'm going to leave it as is. And checking it out, I think these pieces are good to go. Well, maybe a little more cutting, just to make it slightly easier on me. Just counting up all the holes here to make sure I've got them all clear. A little bit of the side lip does need to be cut away here, just for the easiest possible access. So before this piece gets glued onto the deck, we'll need to do a light leak test around these edges, because once it's down, it's definitely going to be much more difficult to take care of. We're getting darn close, just right at the cusp of being able to glue all these wall pieces down to the floor. And then we can get the real serious electronics going on. So I notched off that side to help out these little fiber optics there so they've got as clear a path as possible. And it looks like I could do a little more on this and that side. The other thing I don't know, let's check this out. Okay, I was wondering if these intercoms go on the inside or the outside, and they do go on the outside. Alright, now everything is absolutely unobstructed, but this top row is definitely going to have, well, that should work out alright. I can probably remove these light blockers back here, but I'm not going to remove this one. In fact, I'll glue this one back on. These were cut by me. It's been a long time since I worked on this piece video-wise, so I don't know what video it would be that covers this initial construction. Is my glue stopper stuck up? Now, of course, a big concern here is that these 3 slots on the upper side here have to deal with all the fiber optics that go through this piece, and that is a lot of fiber optics. I'm probably going with a 0.25 millimeter, so that will be very thin and flexible, which will help us out. Then all that is going to get funneled through here and through a hole in the floor. Take one more look at this. It's a slightly tighter fit than I would imagine. There's like a micron left of the stubs on the ends here. I'll just try and get rid of those and see if that's what's doing it. Yeah, so width-wise, it fits in perfectly. Height-wise, it's got to be like half a millimeter too thick, too tall. And I don't know that I can cut a straight enough line. Let's try it. Sweet. I curved a little at that end, but it fits much, much nicer now. So once the glue sets on the back side, we're set with this, at least those first panels there. Actually, I am ready to glue those in. One of the things that I've been trying to avoid doing on this model is rushing to do any one part before I'm absolutely positively sure parts are ready to go. So all those fiber optics need to fit through that small line ridge right there. I don't technically need these legs on, but they do help to keep it in place. And it looks like width-wise, there is a lot of wiggle going on here. And since you look through the front of the window, I want to set these as far back as possible. Well, one thing I'm going to have to test is to see if a strand of fiber optics can be put through here while the back is glued on and down through here. If it doesn't, then I've got to thread all of this up before I glue the back on, then try and get all these threads through this hole, put this in place, and then glue it. That will definitely be tougher than not. Alright, so deep breath. Get all the scrap plastic out of the way there. That would be a really nice moire effect if I was going to motorize this piece, but I'm not, and the decal should do all the work. I do have some spare motors around, but I really don't think I want to go to that extent. Alright, I'm ready for this. Now the reason why I keep pulling it out of frame is to look at it against the light, make sure all the holes are good. And I would say they are good. I would say these pieces are nicely glued, and here is a preliminary look at the piece. It's been a long drive on this. I'm just noticing there's a little notch in here. It's not very visible, but I will have to patch that up. Alright, so this one can go back in the bag for the moment, because I don't want it accidentally getting damaged. I definitely don't want this beautiful finish on the anthracite gray to get damaged. Still have to paint this front black, so I'll do that nowish. And to repair this, I might even be able to use just a little tiny piece of this plastic here. Just find a nice little scrap, like that one. Yep, that's all it needs. So, put a little glue on the table there, put that in place. Yeah, right there, like that. That is a tiny little repair. Put a little more glue back here to help stabilize it. So once that's set, in a little while, I'll slice off the edge, make it thin, make it even. Put a little anthracite over there, and that will be that for that one.